Have you ever experienced something so crippling in your life that has made you feel broken? I have. Are you someone who has a giving heart but is struggling to feel good themselves? Are you consistently putting your needs aside to take care of everyone else? If so, you're not alone. Giving starts with giving to yourself so that you are able to give of yourself to other people. Isn't it time you took back control and discovered what makes you tick? Join me in my journey and find out how you can feel better about yourself, live your best life, and share that with others. Thinking of yourself, it doesn't make you selfish. It makes you brave. I'm Nelia, and this is the Giving Starts With You podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Giving Starts With You podcast. Thank you again for joining me this week. Today, I have a very new special friend to me. His name is Tracy Brinkmann. Tracy, I'm excited to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm rocking it, man. I'm really excited to be here.
It's awesome. Where are you tuning in from today?
I'm just north of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the home of the Harley Davidson.
I love those bikes. I've got to say, I
Me
love
too.
them.
I know your audience can't see us, but we got the long beard going here. So definitely I'm a fan as well.
I love it. I haven't been there yet, but one of the places I'd like to visit for sure. So, today, Tracy, I need to tell you a little bit about him. He is phenomenal, a phenomenal gentleman. He's also a fellow podcaster, I'm very proud to say. Tracy has gone from hitting the rock bottom of drugs, divorce, bankruptcy, and even the death of an 18-month-old daughter, to running and planning and marketing some of corporate America's finest companies. He's also run his own company helping business owners be seen. I love that. We all thrive to be seen. Also, his podcast focused on driven entrepreneurs. Tracy is a business and success coach that realizes life isn't fair and participation awards do not feed your family or your drive to succeed. Love that. This driven, dark horse entrepreneur is looking to share all that he has learned and is still learning about starting, restarting, kickstarting, and stepping up your entrepreneurial game, all while not ignoring that amazing tool between your ears. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Tracy. It's an honor to have you here today.
Oh no, it's my pleasure to be sure.
I love having fellow podcasters on and supporting one another as well. So that's phenomenal.
Absolutely. I think it's really cool. The podcast community as a whole, I think, is very supportive of one another. And I believe that going into the program we both went through. But then as I hang out on this new app called Clubhouse,
Yes.
I've been poking around the different the rooms that really are podcast focused and meeting new faces that I hadn't met before from all over this great spinning blue globe that we're on. And it seems to be a universal thing that podcasters are very supportive of one another. Maybe it's just we understand the pains, right?
Yes. No, I love it. Thank you. So, Tracy, I know we've got a lot to talk about today, but can you start off by just telling us a little bit about who you are?
Oh my goodness. Oh, God, 50 years on this planet. That's going to take a while, but I can give you the Cliff Notes version. I was lucky enough to be born and raised by an amazing set of parents. My father was in the military for 23 years, so I got to see just about all of the United States. I think the one state I have yet to be in physically is Maine. All the rest of them I've been in or lived in. Spent 6 years of my youth growing up in Germany. And then right out of high school, I joined the military and requested to go back to Germany. So I spent a total of like 9 years over in Europe and really enjoyed it. Gave me a great exposure to not just an American culture, right? But all the different diversities inside our American culture and overseas, so I really thank the Lord and count all my blessings for that. And I've been a hustler, and I mean that in a good way, from day one. I mean, I probably had the entrepreneurial bug way back when. I can remember being in elementary school, and we would have this machine. You'd put a nickel in, and it'd give you 2 or 3 pencils, and it was pretty random whether it gave you 2 or 3. And so I would go and make sure that I had my nickel and I would get my pencils and have them at the ready, because I knew sometime during the day or sometime during tomorrow's day, someone was going to need a pencil, and we weren't allowed to leave class to go get one. So I would sell them my pencil for a quarter.
Huh.
So it's all about supply and demand, everyone.
It's the simple things, but the concepts are still there. Like,
they're,
it's
they're
just
still there.
amazing.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
absolutely.
phenomenal.
Yeah. And that developed later on to, selling drawings that I would do. Again, being in the military, I would draw, birds of prey and military scenes. And then later on in my later teens, I got into working on cars, doing the electronics and paint jobs and pinstriping and all that kind of stuff. So I was always earning money in some sort of creative fashion as long as I could remember.
That's great. Very inspiring. Thank you. And thank you for your years of service.
Oh, my pleasure, to be
Uh,
sure.
Very, very selfless. So thank you so much. I would like to talk a little bit about some of the things that you've been through,
Hmm.
and how you kind of you made it through. What kind of mindset did you have to really overcome some of the things that you've been faced with in your life?
It's that's a great question. Let me start there. And the mindset was different with each, I'll call it roller coaster, a dip in my life's roller coaster. So if we go back to the first one, which would have been the drug scene, when I got out of the military, it was just about the time of the dot-com boom. And I went back to Southern California, and I took some newly gathered computer skills, and I started doing computer consulting and computer programming for preferred provider organizations. Boy, I say that one 3 times fast, right? Anyway, it was going well. I was making some pretty good money, and this was probably the first time in my life I was earning what I'll call real money, right? I'm talking about real cash. And but I hadn't taken the time because it happened so fast. I still had what I'll call a street mentality, right? I was still the surfer guy, the high school kid. I was still young in the head,
Mm.
and which kept me around. Not a great crowd to be around when you have some money to spend, because that ended up putting me into bars, and some of the bars where ladies wore less clothes than others, and that introduced me to the drug of choice in Southern California at the time, which was speed, which the first couple of times was awesome, and please trust me, I do not condone doing drugs. But what I mean by it being awesome was I was able to get so much done in a really short period of time, which opened me up to go out and party more. And that was this selfish mindset that kept me spinning in this cycle and got me hooked on drugs to the point where the business has kind of faded off into the distance. And now I was selling it to first off support my habit. Then I figured out I'm kind of good at this, and I could recruit others and manage them to do the same thing for me. And I just sit back and collect the money. Not a career path I would tell anybody to take. Obviously, we've all seen the movies, but I was out probably I'll be honest, it was probably about a 4-day party binge. Again, here come the selfish, right? And when I get back to my condo, I see the doors kicked in, right? And you pause. And when you're in that lifestyle and that environment, getting things stolen, getting things, windows broken, cars, jimmied, whatever happens. You just accept it as part of the lifestyle. But when I walked into my condo, I was looking around, and furniture was tousled around, clothes were strewn all over the place. It was Fruity Pebbles was the cereal of my choice at the time, poured out onto the kitchen counter, boxes thrown around like someone was looking for something. And I come to realize the police had kicked in my door.
Oh,
I was now on 5-0's radar. Not a good place to be. And so this became a bit of a turning point for me, right? Okay, do we continue down this selfish path? And I'll be honest with you, if it was just me, I may have said yes. I may have been arrogant enough in my youth to say, "Oh, I can stay one step ahead of these guys." But I had a 4-month-old baby that was new to the picture, so it was now as I turn back and reintroduce my father in this story, military man, first, family first,
Mm.
pounded into my head. And luckily he had pounded that into my head, because that's when I made the decision, family first. I got to stop being so damn selfish. And now I have a child to raise. So I went to my parents and said, I need help, right? I didn't go to rehab. I just wanted to do this cold turkey, but I would need someone to watch over my child while I was recovering, because when you come off something like speed, you drop off fast and you probably sleep for days, right? And that's what happened. Now, I that okay, you got out of it, Tracy. That's awesome. Well, the problem with something like this, and anyone who's going through any issue, they'll understand where I'm going with this next, is my self-confidence had taken a kick to the head.
Mm.
Sure, I still had my computer skills. I could go right back out there and start selling them, right? And get back in the money, but I no longer had the confidence to do that, right? So what I started doing at that point is, all right, I got to do something to earn money. So I was out there taking day jobs. I'd go to a temp agency. Hey, I got all these skills. Do some computer programming. I actually started doing computer entry. I went and did a warehouse job at
Hustling.
Montgomery Wards,
Mm.
right? I needed to do things to start building my confidence back up. And after it took probably about 6 months, 8 months or so, I felt like, okay, I'm ready to really re-enter the workforce. And I didn't go back the entrepreneurial route because of the ups and downs that came with that. Got that new baby still. I put myself out to the corporate world and was lucky enough to get hired on at Coca-Cola. And that started my rise in corporate America. And yeah, but it was all about turning from that selfishness and saying, all right, it's not just me. I've got to take care of both of us, right?
Mm.
At the same time, and rebuilding that confidence through action to get myself up to the point where I was ready to take on a real job.
Wow, that's an incredible story. It's hard because when you're in that moment, and like you're saying, when you're in that moment and it feels great at the beginning,
Yeah,
you know, you're not thinking of getting out, and you turned it into a bit of a business, right? Here you are, a businessman and hustling, when you're
I
good
know.
at one business, it's all the way around, all the elements. But it is what we tell ourselves, and it's funny how our confidence just dips. And it's like when you give something up, you have to replace it with something else.
Mhm.
Right. So for you, it sounds like you really hustled. You tried to get out there, tried to do all the things so that you could gain that.
Yeah, and I think the other step, and when it comes to, and I'll say any kind of addiction, right?
Mhm.
While I was only addicted to one thing, you've got to completely disconnect, right? I left the environment entirely, moved. Now, mind you, geographically, it was only 16 miles.
Mm.
But that 16 miles in the area I was at completely disconnected me from all the people that I was previously associated with.
That's
Plus, I moved in with mom and dad. So now I had that further. I would never disrespect my mom and dad by bringing it into their home.
mm.
Right. So that further drove it home that I can't. It's complete disconnect, which I think made me even more successful.
Yeah, I could see it helping you, cut and dry like cold turkey. But at the same time, you must have, had days where you missed some of the people, until you get further
Yeah.
along in your path, and then you're kind of like, okay, I'm relieved, right? In a way.
Absolutely, and I think luckily enough, social media wasn't around at the time.
I know,
So it
isn't it
disconnected.
crazy?
But you're absolutely right, and not just the people, but some of the fun times, right?
Yeah.
Because let's call it like it is. Going out and having fun with your friends is fun.
Mm.
Unfortunately, during that time in my life, it involved a drug, right? That was keeping me going. But if you take that away, I love going out and shooting pool. I love going out and listening to live music, right? And so the establishments I hung out in had live music and pool, and I like women, so you put them all together, and it's just not a good mix.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny how, when children come into the picture, we just our identity changes sometimes for the
Yeah.
better. It's just our priorities and just everything, like you said, it became less selfish, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So I love that. But can you tell me a little bit about when I read that you had lost a daughter?
Hmm.
It broke my heart. Can you, if you feel comfortable enough, can you share a little bit about your story?
Absolutely. It was during my rise in corporate America. My second daughter was coming to be, right? And at this point, I had just gotten hired on at a new role at Coca-Cola at headquarters. So now it moved me from Southern California to Atlanta, which was awesome. Further disconnection, right? But um, so, but what happened when her name was Krista? When Krista was born, she was born with a distended abdomen. And for those who don't know what that means, it means if you picture the cliche guy with a beer belly, imagine that on an infant, a big old belly coming out. And what had happened is, like they said, in her first trimester of development, one of the arteries feeding her intestinal tract didn't fully develop, so it wasn't getting enough blood supply. So her large intestine, where when we're normally born, maybe 200 centimeters, don't quote me on that, but it's
Mhm.
like that. She came out with like 20. All right.
Mm.
So she didn't have enough intestine. And so everything was backing up inside of her and causing her tummy to blow up. And then, she went through 6 operations in the first 3 months of her life just to get her stabilized. And they were trying different things to give her enough intestinal tract to sustain life. And what I mean by that is that, we eat, right? We
Mhm.
chew our food and we swallow it, and it goes down into our tummies and does its thing. Well, in your intestines is where that all gets absorbed. Well, she didn't have enough for her to eat and to be absorbed enough for her to sustain life. So one of the operations she had to go through is getting what's called the TPN line, which is total parental nutrition. And it's literally a bag of fluids that contains all the raw nutrients that we need to live.
Mm.
And it was delivered through the main artery right into her heart. Well, the body being the amazing thing that it is, after she gets this installed, after a couple of months, her liver begins to deteriorate because the body's saying, hey, you're giving me all this amazing nutrition. I don't need to filter any of it. You don't need this liver, right? So now she needs a liver and small bowel transplant. They get her stabilized enough so she can get on the donor list. And while all this is going on, I'm out there, I'll say preaching. I'm out there getting on any stage and preaching the benefits of being an organ donor, right? From my perspective, it's an awesome thing. And I would talk to anyone that would listen, and probably a few people that didn't want to listen, but they heard it anyway. So I was getting out there every stage, you name it. I got on some TV stations and et cetera, radio stations, et cetera. Um, in the meantime, the doctors down in Atlanta say, the best place for her surgery is up in Pittsburgh. The Children's Hospital, that's where the top-notch surgeons for this very specific operation is at. Okay, so mom and the baby go up to Pittsburgh. Me and my oldest from the previous story, we stay in Atlanta, and we're flying up to Pittsburgh, every weekend or two to visit. About month 17, we were out just going around, walking around the town to get out of the hospital for a little while. The baby couldn't leave, so she stayed in. One of the, not nurses, but one of those lady, they used to call them candy stripers. I'm not sure what
Okay.
the good term
Volunteers
is
or
nowadays. Volunteers, right? Unfortunately, lost control of the baby, and she fell on her head. All right. we won't go there. It happened, right? And unfortunately, so now she's already in a weakened state. Now she's trying to heal this huge banana-shaped hematoma on her head, and at that point, her health began taking this really fast downward slide. A couple weekends after that, and anyone who's a parent will know exactly what I'm about to say. You walk into a room and you see your child, and you just know something is wrong, right? The look on their face, there's something different in their eyes. Maybe it's just a heart connection, whatever it is. One weekend I went up there and I had that, and waiting for the doctor to do the rounds. And I was asking the doctor, I says, let me ask you a question. If the organs became available, like right now, do you think she would survive the operation? I got a lot of doctor speak. And okay, no joke, grabbed him by this, the coat, the white coat we all know, pulled him into a janitor's closet right outside her room. I said, look, it's just you and me, right? Mano a mano. No hospital administrators, no insurance companies. Re-asked the question. And I finally got the answer, no, I don't think she would survive. Not the answer I want, but now I know. So the next question becomes, do you think her health would improve to the point where she would survive? Unfortunately, he couldn't, eh, he didn't feel with any kind of certainty that her health would improve given everything she's going through and had been through. So now you've got this choice. You leave her on the respirator, which right now, at that moment in time, I was asking the question, was the one thing that was keeping her alive. It was, allowing her to breathe. All the rest of her functions were okay, but she was too weak to even breathe. So having gone through my selfish time, right? The story I just told,
Mhm.
I felt that if I was going to keep her here on that ventilator, it would be for me, right? And that's it, right? Even though I know she was in pain. So I chose not, well, I say we, her mom and I decided to remove the ventilator, literally wrapped her up in her favorite blankie. I sat down in the rocking chair in her room and I rocked her to sleep one last time. And is, hold on, sorry, as hard as sometimes telling the story is, I'm very thankful for having her in my life, even for the short period of time she was here, and for having that rocking her to sleep one last time moment, because it allowed me to tell her thank you for all the amazing things she had taught me the short time she was here. How short life really is. Loved ones, love what people that are here now. Tell everyone you love them every single day, even if they're like, okay, I get it, you love me, tell them anyway, right? Because you never know. And she also taught me to look at life through a different set of eyes. She had this amazing, and I'm sorry if I'm babbling on too, please
No.
feel free to flag me down. She had this amazing little habit. Um, Even though with all the things she was going through, she was still a normal baby, right? Checking things out, curiosity. But she had this little thing. You've seen the movie E.T.,
Yeah.
okay? That one scene where Elliot's hurting and E.T. reaches out with his
Yes.
finger and it lights up. Well, Krista used to do that same thing. Now, she didn't heal things, obviously, but she would reach out whenever she saw something that she had never seen before. She would reach out with that finger. Doesn't matter whether it was a piece of food, a puppy,
Period.
an animal, and she would touch it with that finger. And once she touched it, that was her signal that it was okay. And you grab it, it was in her mouth, whatever it was, babies do. And I was always amazed watching her do all these things and investigate all these things, knowing full well she was in a lot of pain most of the time. On her face, you didn't know it, right? She always had big blue eyes, big bright smile, look, just golden blonde hair and a tan. Now, the tan unfortunately was from jaundice, but she still looked she was your cliche Gerber baby. I have a picture of her. It looks like she's the exact same face as the Gerber baby that you see on all
Aw.
the advertisements. But anyway, I was lucky enough, like I said, to tell her thank you for teaching me all these things, and almost making my own father-daughter promise to her to make sure to live up to that. And that's what I've done. It's going forward, coming out of that. because I knew from my previous story the dark path that I could turn down to try and numb myself. Would have been really easy to find a source of a drug to
Mm,
self-medicate myself from the pain, right? I didn't want to go on that selfish path. So my mindset was, look, I have to find something that would replace this pain. Like you said, you take away something, something's got to take its place. And I threw myself into work, not always a great thing. Um, and then I threw myself into personal development, right? I read everything from Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and you know all the names. And
yeah.
I was going to all the, this was back when, they were doing those, they would do those big 3-day events, right? I went to all of them, every single one of them. And I absorbed, and I started, putting into action the things I was learning. And that really rocketed my career at, within corporate America. There was one period when this happened that I got like 5 promotions in 4 years.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it was really just from doing the things that, that I get on my podcast and preach about. Here, do this, do that,
Mm.
all those simple things, and learning all that stuff to keep my head focused in the right direction. Yeah, that was a big turning point for me.
I'm a little bit speechless hearing your story about your daughter. Thank you for being courageous enough to talk to us about her, and I'm sure she did teach you so much. And it sounds like you are a tremendous loving father. I am so sorry that you went through that.
I absolutely try. I think as parents, we all wish we could be better, but I think I did okay.
Yeah, sounds like she was very curious when you talk about the finger, and
Oh my
it just
goodness. I've been, my parents raised me to, make my own mistakes, right? They were like, you can try anything, you can do anything you set your mind to. So, a lot of times parents are like, oh, I'm gonna block everything off from them. No, 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 no. Keep an eye on them. Don't get me wrong, right? If there's a fireplace there, don't let them go over there and touch the hot glass that's,
Mhm.
on top of the fireplace, but certainly teach them their limits and allow them to explore. And I think that helps people
Mm.
continue that exploration as they get older. Whereas if you
Yes.
if you put them in that little safety box, yeah, that's great when they're babies, but what happens when they're an adult and they're like, where's my safety box?
It's true, but it can be scary. My son's 14 now, and I'm like, okay, how much, how much do I?
Yeah.
With COVID, it's kind of made the decision for me because the poor guy, I feel bad for him. He's not going
Right.
anywhere, right? But it's tough, but you've definitely had some really um tough times, and you keep bouncing back, and you talk about mindset and just the things that we tell ourselves. What would you say is the biggest gift that you've ever given to yourself that perhaps changed the way you felt about who you are?
Ooh, I think the biggest gift I gave myself would have been the simple thought that I'm worthy.
Mm,
And it seems like, well, yeah, duh, you're worthy. Look, you did all these amazing things. No, no, stop for a second. Even after my daughter passed away, and I'm doing all these, great self-development things, and I've got this great career taken off in corporate America. As things progressed on, I started traveling in a different path than the woman I was married to at that time,
mm,
right? So as I traveled my path, she stayed where she was at. She
mm.
liked she liked who she was and what things, right? That was good. Change, not good. This good,
It's funny how
change, no.
that happens sometimes
Isn't that
with
weird?
spouses. Yeah, because one moves forward and the other one is growing, and
Yeah,
the other one is kind of comfortable and not really wanting to change, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes when that happens, one or both will want to grab hold tighter than necessary, right? And I learned an amazing lesson. There's only one person on this planet you can change, and
Mm,
that's the person that you look at in the mirror. That's it. I can't change anybody. I can't change you.
mm,
I can give you some suggestions, maybe even some guidance. But if you choose not to, Good. All right. Well, I tried, right? And so the last decade of our marriage was really probably me thinking I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of someone better than this. I'm not worthy to step out into the, we'll call it the dating atmosphere. And plus, I was trying to deliver to my two daughters. I had one more daughter after, Krista passed away. To my now two daughters. So my first daughter I say saved my life, and
Mm,
then one after that. Um, the what I call a blessing of having both parents, at least through high school.
mm,
My parents were together till the day they passed away. So my whole life, my parents were together, right? And so many of the parents I'd seen around were, splitting up for one reason or another. And I don't know if I did them any justice, because obviously towards the end there were some real battles,
mm,
and I won't say anything ever got physical, but certainly it was right on that edge where you're like, oh my God, are they going to start
mm.
swinging at each other? And it was not conducive of being a kid, right? I had two extreme, my daughters are amazing women, thank God, thank goodness. And probably no love, probably not because of me, but anyway. But when it got to the point that probably about a year or two before we finally went our separate ways, I just was looking around thinking, you know what? As soon as my youngest graduates high school, I know what's going to happen. She's going to go off with her
Mm,
boyfriend she's been dating for a couple of years, and he's an amazing guy. I love him to death. Um, I'm going to say that's it. Where I'm
mm,
stepping out because I'm worthy, and that was a big change.
mm.
And and that's pretty much how it happened, right? Graduated high school within a month. No, it was no. Let me probably it was graduating high school, and then by the following February, it
Mm.
was like, all right, Dad, me and
Yeah.
we're gonna go off over here. And hey, I get it. It's all good. You're,
Yeah.
I,
Sometimes we know what we need, but we don't,
yeah,
I just did a solo episode on giving yourself permission. And we know, and it's not really fear, but we want to take care of all the people in the family. We
yeah,
want, when this person is okay, then I'll take care of me.
yeah,
When all these things are in order, then it'll be my turn.
yeah,
And although that makes sense in our minds, sometimes it's not very helpful because we lose a part of
yeah,
ourselves. From experience, I'm not answering for you, but
yeah,
and we also just, yeah, we start to perhaps say things in our mind that aren't true about ourselves. So we lose our confidence, our self-worth, all those things because we're putting ourselves last. But,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's there's a song out there that says, "No, I won't let anybody talk to me," or I talk to myself worse than I talk to my best friend.
Mm.
What's up with that? And I think it
Yeah.
probably what's sad is it's probably really true.
Yeah.
If I think back to my self-talk prior to that moment where I said, "You know what? Screw this. I'm worthy," and started stepping up to the plate and being who I felt I was worthy enough to be, I had some pretty awful self-talk. And mind you, like I said, I had been to all the seminars and read all the books and
Mm.
been putting into place, but that one thing still hadn't clicked, right? And that was that one thing, like you were saying, I'm worthy. I'm worthy of it. And right behind that, when the separations happen, it's all good. I sat down. I'm a big goal setting man, right?
Mm.
Write down your goals, break them down. Kind of goes with my computer brain. But I decided to do something completely different. And at the same time, after I wrote down, here's what I want to do, kind of with my life, my career, etc. I wrote down a goal for the woman I would like to meet.
Hmm.
And I sat down and okay,
Good for you.
I will be honest. I did the guy thing. Yeah, I'd like her to be this skinny and blonde and blue eyed and yada yada yada, right? But then when I got past that surface stuff, it was like I want her to have a good heart. I want us to have at least 80% in common. Enough differences makes it interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But certainly she's got that love, good hard rock and roll music, gotta love live music, right? Gotta be willing to let me be me, and I'll let her, you know what I'm saying? All those
Oh
little things
yeah, love it.
that you're like, well, of course. But how many of us give up a good chunk of those because we meet someone that's just cute? Oh man, she's so hot,
Mm.
right? And she said
Yes.
yes to go on a date with me. And you're like, next thing you know, y'all are getting married. And you're like, yeah, but my wife's hot. Yeah, but she hates you,
And she doesn't want to go out and she doesn't want to do it,
right? Or
which
you
is
hate
okay
her.
if you're the
Yeah.
same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and what's really amazing about this, and I'll wrap this one up really cool, is that I wrote all that down, and it was probably within 6 months. I want to say it was 4, but I don't want to exaggerate. Within 6 months, I started talking with the woman who's now my wife, and she's everything that I wrote down plus,
Nice.
which is completely amazing.
Oh yeah. That's, sometimes we meet that person that's 80%, all the, similarities. And even then over time, I find that one maybe so one of the two people perhaps start like you said, start changing in a different direction, and the other
Hmm.
one just stays the same. And
Yeah.
even though you start with all those similarities, that can happen. So if you don't start with all those things in common, where do you begin?
I
it's
know you just,
it's just crazy. But
it is.
I love that you gave yourself that gift, because it's true. I think we judge ourselves more than we judge anybody, even with simple things. Even if What's a simple thing? Even if I've screwed up at work. If it was my
Mhm.
friend, I would say, you know what, you're human. They'll understand. All these things, right? You try to be all these things, and then to yourself, you're like, oh, great, huh? It's we're
What a
so
dummy.
hard on ourselves. It's crazy, isn't it? But the
Yes.
more we do that, not only do we feel horrible about who we are, but then we turn people away. Nobody wants to be friends with somebody who's always down on themselves. So it,
Hmm.
it just creates this circle of, this ripple
You
effect of doom,
can
right?
you can actually take that one step further, because I don't disagree with you, right? There's a
Hmm.
lot of folks that don't want to be with that person that's like that. However, those that are willing to be with a person that are like that
Mm.
are like that. Right? So
Yes.
you find the guy, oh, I just lost my job. Oh, woe is me, woe is me. And he goes down to the corner bar, and he's sitting down there with what? A bunch of other guys that are sitting there going, I just lost my job. Oh, woe is me. Oh, woe is me.
Misery loves company.
Right? Or that one guy that's sitting there going, I hate my job. I hate my job. I have my job. You guys are lucky. You don't have a job.
It's crazy, right? The way we think and the way that we treat ourselves is so different. And I would really like more people to learn how to do that differently.
Right?
I love that that was one of the gifts that you gave yourself. Thank you. Because I'm sure that there's a lot of people that are listening that, you know, uh, perhaps are doing that to themselves.
Hmm.
And how can you get through difficult times, and how can you get through horrible situations when you don't think highly of yourself? It just makes it harder to move forward.
Right?
Like in your experience, so you've been through a divorce and you've been through all these things, and you mentioned bankruptcy as well.
Yeah.
Is Besides, feeling self-worth, is there anything else that you feel really helped you overcome these things?
You know, it was, and it comes for me, it comes with self-worth, but there's that self-love factor as well, right? And first off, I think you do have to love yourself. I think Brian Tracy said it best when he says, you can't give any more than you have. You've got to fill, and we were talking about this earlier, you've got to fill your cup in order to help others.
Mm.
Right. And that's a big thing in the personal development arena. Is like, okay, I'm going to go do all these amazing things, and I'm going to help others. Well, you got to do you first. Right. And if you only have your cup filled up to line 5 out of 10, well,
Mm.
then you can't give any more than 5. And trust me, when your line drops down to 1, the ability to give really just dwindles, and you're like lethargic.
Can make you
It,
sick.
it does. And
Yeah.
the same thing comes with working. So you can really liken those two. People are like, okay, I know I can get this much done in 40 hours. So I'm going to work 60 hours. nonsense. I'm going to go after it.
Mm.
Well, what happens is after about hour 52, your ability to be productive drops radically. I mean, if we look at that bell curve, it's just a steep decline. I think the first, after hour 53, it drops 50%, and
Mm.
then it just keeps nosediving after that. So you're really doing twice as much and only getting half as much
Yeah, the
done.
productivity is just
Yeah. So the same thing happens with your ability to give. If you don't refill your own tank, right? Your worthiness tank, your self-love tank, whatever you want to call it, your giving tank,
mm,
by taking care of you. And I mean that in all the great senses. Sleep, a little bit of exercise doesn't hurt nobody. And I don't mean going out there and banging out weights. You can get up and walk around your house. That's fine, right? It's movement is what does it. Stand up and just,
dance to
wiggle.
the oldies.
Exactly. Thank you. Put on a Michael
Love
Jackson
old rock
song,
and
or
roll.
yeah, right. To put on some Earth, Wind, and
CPR,
Fire.
CPR, come on.
Said, there you go. Okay, a little Credence. I can go with that too. And you just you start. All right, I got this. Moving, right? And then of course a little self-love, and listen to that voice inside your head telling you all those good things. For me, what really helped with that was I started journaling like a madman.
Mm.
In the morning, I would write down things, what I would remember about my dreams. I read this big book about dreamscaping and what have you. So I try to roll. I'm not going to get all woo woo on you, but whatever I would remember about my dreams, and then what I wanted to do and what my goals were. And then at the end of the day, I would kind of write down here are the things I got accomplished, right? I would
Mm.
focus on that. Here are and I tried to do at least a 3-to-1. Here are the three things I made sure I got accomplished. Here's one thing didn't go the way I wanted to, and maybe here's why it didn't happen. So now I was at I was acknowledging the world's not perfect, right? It's not always going to go the way you want it to, but sometimes it is your fault, right?
Mm.
The reason
Yes.
that didn't get done is because I didn't pick up the phone and call the guy. Can't make a sale if you don't make a phone call. You know what I'm saying? Okay. It doesn't make me bad. It just means, all right, that's me telling myself tomorrow, if I want to get that done, I better dang well pick up the phone.
Yes,
Right?
we have to do our part. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talk about, when I was anxious and depressed for many years, I kept waiting for somebody to come and rescue me.
Me
Why
too.
can't yeah, why can't people see that I'm suffering? Why can't people see that I haven't woken up in how long and I'm
Hmm.
not getting up and I'm not happy and I'm miserable and blah blah blah. And then I felt like I was trapped in this bird cage.
Hmm.
And then I realized, and I have a bird cage at home that actually reminds me of this, but I realized that the bird cage opens from the inside, the one that I have.
Hmm.
So as soon as I started taking responsibility for myself and showing an example to my son, I can't do all these, not take care of myself, but yet teach him different. Like they see, what we're
Yeah.
doing, right? I mean, they watch everything. And so I really had to figure out how to do it for myself. I had to want it. And sometimes, though, when you're in that dark place, the last thing you can do is have the energy to get out of it yourself. So it's a
Mm.
fine line, But
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
through my experiences though, I try to remember that because it's like with anything. You can't help an alcoholic to stop drinking unless they want to start. It's like, it's everything. And it's so tough because I don't know about you, but for me, when I was growing up, I grew up in a European household. My parents were immigrants, and I'm a young Portuguese girl. You're not to stop, you're to make dinner, and you're to clean, and you're to do
Hmm.
this, and you're to do that. And it wasn't okay to just take care of yourself, just because that's the way it was. It wasn't through a place of hatred or anything like that. And so I grew up not really feeling like it was okay. It was
Hmm.
conceited to take care of myself. It was all
Hmm.
these horrible connotations around it. But now, when I'm busying myself, my mom will come to me and say, "Why can't you just sit down?" Like, and I'm like, "Well, thanks, mom." Like I've realized
Now
this
you say
now.
that.
I've realized this like 3, 4 years ago. Thank you. But it's so true. You cannot give what you don't have. We like to give a lot in our community, but you can't, if it's going to drain everything that you have,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to do for others, but do for yourself. It wasn't until a few years ago that I realized that whole, put on your mask for like on the airplane.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so dumb, for a long time.
Yeah.
I was like, that doesn't make any sense. How
Yeah.
selfish are these people? And then I thought about it and thought about it, and I'm still, it took me a while. And I'm like, well, yeah, like let's play this out. Okay, we're on a plane, and I had to really think about it.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much I didn't want to accept it at first. I was
Mm-hmm.
resisting, just didn't make any common sense to me. But now it's like, oh yeah, absolutely.
And there's a lot of those, I think, subconscious things, suppositions that are happening inside our head that are helping our conscious make those quick decisions for us. Those things that just happen instantly, like, well, why do I do that?
Yeah.
Why do I put that mask on them first? Why? It's a child. Well, I need to take care of them first. No, no, no. If you're dead, you can't help them, right? Or if you pass out, let's be nice, right? If you pass out, you can't help them. And what if they can't do the mask by themselves? You got to take care of you and
Mm,
then pass it on. And it really is like that. If you just take it to the money level, right? Let's say I want to earn enough money. Well, the first thing you need to have enough money is to put clothes on your back, food in your belly, and a roof over your head. Okay. Once you have that handled, well, then now you want to bring someone else into the picture, a spouse, a child, whatever. Well, now you got to raise the bar, because especially in the early years, they're going to take a lot, right?
yes.
Right. And then in the later years too. Anyway, so, and then, so you got to be able to replenish that if you think it from a bank account standpoint.
Mhm.
But now the bank account is inside of you, be it energy, physical and mental energy. It never ceases to amaze me. No, I don't. And feel free to cut this out if you want to. It never ceases to amaze me when I hear of or engage with a parent that says, I don't understand my kid. Have you taken the time? Do
Have
you
you
talk?
listened when they speak?
Do you talk to them? I mean, well, they just won't talk to me. Well, go sit down on their bed and yeah. And I just did a podcast on this about, and it just popped out of my head. A thought I was going, the podcast for the week, we're going to be going in a completely different direction. And something my daughter did made me think of, oh my God, for me, every child is one caring adult away from success, right?
Hmm.
That's all it really takes. It
Mhm.
takes one adult. It doesn't have to be their parent. One adult in that child's life to show them they're important, that
Yes.
what they think matters,
For me,
right?
it was my music teacher.
See, it was my English teacher originally, not my. And again, I had great parents, but there
Yes.
was a time my parents had to leave me in Germany because of an emergency situation in the family in the United States. I was like 13,
Mm.
maybe 12. It was right around that range. So I was old enough to take care of myself, especially back then, right? Well,
Mhm.
and I was a latchkey kid, so it wasn't like I couldn't. But then there was like, when you're a kid and you're a latchkey kid, you go home and to do your chores and do your homework, and sometimes even make dinner for parents when they get there. But if something happens, your parents are a phone call away,
Mm.
right? There's that safety net. My parents were in another country. There's a fear factor there, and I was trying to be the brave man. I'm the little man of the house for 2 weeks while my parents are
But at
gone.
12, 13, you are so
Yeah, you're dealing with fear in a different way. And thank goodness, my English teacher saw that,
mm,
and she came over and she engaged with me and chatted me up. She learned my love for fantasy,
mm.
and she turned me on to Ray Bradbury, the author, a book called The Tattoo Man. And it was a series of short stories that are told via, obviously, a tattooed man sitting on a bench somewhere
Cool.
in a park or whatever. And each story was someone looking at one of his tattoos and
Huh.
them being drawn into that tattoo,
I
and
love
it
that idea. Yeah.
told that story. And that got me hooked on books, and
Mm.
those books got me through that tough time as a kid. So, which is probably what influenced me later on when my daughter passed away, to find something to get me through the tough time. But again, I think everyone's one person away, a child is one adult away. I think we're all one person away from being successful. And sometimes that person is you.
Yeah, through my interviews too on the show, there's always that one, sometimes two, but usually there's that one person in everybody's story that has given them the courage or the bravery or the guts, anything to make that change.
Hmm.
And the story of them before and after they met that person, completely different transformation.
Hmm.
Sometimes too with teenagers, I know my son doesn't like to talk very much, but I try to pay attention to what he's not saying.
See,
So
you get it.
sometimes it's the things, you know why? I think I get it because that was me. So yes, I talk on the podcast, but I'm quite a quiet person in general. Um, and I would keep all my feelings inside for so
Hmm.
long, 12 years. I was just like trying to protect everybody else around me.
Yep.
When my dad died, I thought I was helping myself, I would save my energy to rescue everyone else. And then I
Yep.
would be so like in the pits after. But I had wished all those years, because I felt locked in that cage, that people would listen to what I wasn't saying.
Hmm.
So I know it's a thing,
Yeah.
so I worry more when teens or when kids are not speaking than if they're speaking. Even if their stuff coming out of their mouth is like, ah, and you're gasping, I would rather hear that than hear silence. Because to me, the silence is very scary.
Is the scariest. Brief story, if we still have time.
Of course, yes.
At about the age of 16, my oldest daughter, the one that was born during the whole drug scene,
Right.
was going through some pretty aggressive battles with my then wife, right? The one
Mhm.
where we were going separate ways. And some family, and we were living in Atlanta, some family in California said, hey, she's 16. Have her come on out here, live with us, finish her high school, get her out of that battle mode where the two of them, I mean, they were going at it. It
Mm.
was, it was ugly. We'll just leave it at that. And, and so for me, I felt she was old enough to choose, right? Hey, she could have, where we lived, she could have literally walked out the door and
16,
I
yeah.
had no legal recourse, right? Hey, she's 16, whatever.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to afford her the opportunity, especially to finish high school and be amongst someone I know loved her. And so she chose, yeah, hey, give it a shot. Hey, California. Oh, what's up with that? Right. It was like, yeah, let's go. And so what I did is I bought her, she used to love to write poems.
Mm.
And I bought her this really nice leather bound journal with a wolf. And I think I got it at the Renaissance Festival. So it's very medieval and everything. And on when you opened it up, obviously on the cover, I wrote a message to her, right? Pretty,
That's
trying to
special.
a nice send off thing. And I gave it to her. And I never heard about this journal again until about 3 weeks ago.
Mm.
She has gone back to college most recently to get her degree, and I think she's 35 now. And I'm like super proud. No, she finished high school, but she just went. She started going on the mom path, right?
Mhm.
And she's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go back to school. I'm like, right
Awesome.
on, go for it, right?
Phenomenal. Yeah.
And so she's taking this English lit class, and she sent me. She goes, I want to share with you this assignment that I did, and in this assignment, this English assignment, she was asked to write about one of the writings that most impacted her. And one of the writings that most had impacted her was the message I wrote
Oh, that's
in
so
that journal
sweet.
back then. And as a result of that, she started releasing her angst into that journal via poetry. And her poetry went from, just being our angry teenager to just acknowledging things around her, and it turned to more beauty, which probably did her a whole lot of good. But she had never ever told me about that, so I didn't know about it.
Wow.
And I read this poem that she wrote, and if I had it handy, I would read it. She gave me permission to, but I don't have it handy, and I want to make you wait. I bawled like a baby. I was wept tears because
I
it's
don't mind
it's
waiting.
it's one of those moments
Yes.
as a parent where you're going, oh my God, everything I did, you heard. you
Oh,
know?
what a beautiful moment. And
It
the
was
fact that it
amazing.
helped to heal her. And at that time, whether she used it or not, like, I'm going to give this to her. I'm hoping that she's going to do something with it. And knowing
Right.
after all these years later that it did help her
Oh,
as a teen. It helped her get through all those things. That's
it
beautiful.
was it was amazing.
That's awesome. Writing is so important. Sometimes people make fun of it, but it's also the art of physically writing as opposed to typing it out. It's very
Yes.
therapeutic as well. Absolutely. What did she go to school for? Finish
Well, her long-term goal is she wants to own a bakery. She wants to own a business. And
Okay,
currently the business she wants to own is a bakery. That could change, you know how that goes. I know mine has changed a couple times.
cool. But she's got you to back her up with all your business
You
expertise.
know, I've always been, and she's gone through some tough times. She's made some decisions that I'm not a fan of, but whatever. We all do that, right?
Oh yeah, I've done
But
lots.
I've always been that guy. It's like, you know what? No matter what you're going through, I'm going to be here for you, one way or the other,
Mm.
even if it's just to say, you know, I disagree with what you did, but I understand why you did it. Okay, that's fine.
Oh yeah.
Um,
As long as
uh,
they understand why. I don't, it's when people are, oh, I did this, or I believe in this, or I don't believe in this, but I can't give you a reason why. As long as you understand your
yeah,
opinion, understand the reason behind your opinion. But
I think I got it right here.
yeah, I'll cut some of that out. Don't worry. I just really wanted to hear the poem. And I'm sure other people want to hear it too. It sounds beautiful.
Okay, here it is. All right. I may weep at this, so be
That's
ready
okay.
for it. Okay. So
You know,
this,
the best piece of equipment for a podcaster is a box of tissues, right?
this is true. I've come to learn that. Okay, so obviously I told you about the journal, and I wrote the thing in this. So the first poem she wrote on the plane ride from Atlanta to California, and this is it. All right. The only man any girl can trust hates to see her grow, but knows he must. The games they played, in his heart her smile has stayed. She looks to him with questioning eyes. Oh God, here it comes.
Oh,
He doesn't know where the answer lies. A silent tear then falls and echoes through the halls. She turns and boards the plane, knowing nothing will ever be the same. Pulling out the journal he gave her, not knowing what is ahead and so unsure. She knows she will miss him,
aw.
but she must go on and learn to swim.
Oh my God, I'm like teary now.
I
Hey,
know, right?
Tracy. No, but that is so beautiful.
Oh,
And it puts you in that moment of what she felt like it as a young
yeah,
girl. That is
yeah,
absolutely beautiful. She should
yeah.
publish that. That's beautiful.
She has since started writing all kinds of stuff,
Oh,
and yeah,
very heartfelt. And it just tells the story
it
in a
really
few
it
words,
does.
in a few
It
words, you know?
it does. It just wow.
I'm so glad that she shared it with you. What a gift.
Yeah, I'm blessed, and again, she wrote another one
Oh,
here recently. She was talking about, uh, whose advice, and she was saying about she reflected on every time she would come home with a grade that a lot of parents would say, "Oh, you could do better than that." I was always coming at it from a different angle. I always come, well, let's look at the ones you got right. Okay, you got those. Okay, now here's one you got wrong. Let's find out what the right answer is, and why you might have mistaken, the right answer for this one, because
mm.
there's usually a reason why you're thinking what you thought.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason could be, I didn't study. Okay, got it, you didn't study.
As long as you understand it, we're good. Keep going.
That's it. Then, yeah, then you just know the next time you need to study. But if you did study and you still got it wrong, well, let's figure out why so that you can move on. And for me, the idea was, let's not browbeat you, and I don't want you to browbeat yourself that you got that wrong. Let's figure out why, get the right answer, and move on. It's done.
Exactly. I love that attitude. That's great. I do the same thing too here. And sometimes it's like, well, I don't want to work out the wrong answer, and I get that backlash. But as long as, figure it out, or if you don't want me to help you, figure it out to the point where
Right.
when it happens again, you don't feel stuck, you know?
Yeah.
So my son like would admit to me, because he's a fairly good student, but he was getting these bad marks this year. And he's like, I'm really upset with myself. He's more down about it than anybody else. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I've never given you a hard time, right? About your marks, because I think, you do your best and all these things. And he's like, yeah, but it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm starting to feel like less confident and all these
Mm-hmm.
things that you were talking about and all these thoughts that we give to ourselves,
Yep.
And it was the smallest thing that he just didn't understand being virtual, just one thing.
Yep.
And he's like, yeah, I got 100 on the test today. I figured out what it was. It wasn't a big deal. But it's those moments that you want to help them and they don't let you help them. So it's beautiful because I would love to be able to, I think every parent would love to be able to be inside the heads of their teenagers. So the fact that you can now look back and
Mm-hmm.
read that, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, even if I did just this one thing right, like, oh, thank goodness, I would
Absolutely.
love to have a moment like that at some point in my life
I'm sure you will.
with my son. So that's phenomenal. But, I really appreciate, I just met you today, but I feel proud of you because you have been through a lot.
Couple of things, yeah.
And each one of those things could have sent you on a spiral downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. It is very hard when you're at your lowest to change your mindset,
Mm-hmm.
but it's almost
Absolutely.
like we learn lessons along the way.
Well,
So
God willing.
yeah, so I really, I know it's weird hearing that, but because we've just met, but I hope that you're proud of yourself because you've done well. I think it's phenomenal.
I am. I am. I'm lucky enough to say that you hear a lot of folks coming to you and saying, if you could go back and restart your life at any point, would you?
Mm,
You weigh the pros and cons with that. I'm kind of proud of the man I am today. I've done
yes.
things that I am not proud of. Okay, I did them. I've moved on. I've learned the lesson. So would I go back and change anything? No, I don't think so, right? Because then I would be somebody different, and I may not have that amazing girl that wrote that poem for me, right? Or I may not have experienced learning the lessons from that little girl that was only with me for a short period of time.
Mm.
All these amazing things I did learn, I might not learn. I might not. I might turn into a jerk. I don't want to be the jerk.
It's true though. Life is you can't be prepared. You really
It's
can't.
true. It's just
Yeah.
true.
So yeah, no, it's great. I really like your podcast.
Thank you.
I think that the listeners should give it a shot. It's called The Dark Horse Entrepreneur. You can find it anywhere, I believe. um,
Pretty much anywhere.
yeah, no, that's great. Tracy and I started our journey in podcasts around the same time, so we all try to support each other. But honestly, it's a really good show. You'll learn lots of things by listening and being a part of his community. I really appreciate meeting you today, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us some of these, difficult and vulnerable stories. But in those stories, I think you really help the audience with how to move forward, how to overcome, and how to be okay with yourself. Just
Absolutely.
loving yourself. Because honestly, I tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that we can, as human beings, overcome things when we hate ourselves.
No, no, you tend to dive deeper into them in the wrong manner. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's so easy to get lost in the darkness, as we both know.
Abs-
And
Absolutely.
yeah, so and if you're listening out there right now, and perhaps you haven't gone through anything tremendously difficult, but you know of somebody who has, be that person that is listening to what's not being said. you know be that
Absolutely.
person that can say something nice about somebody else. Notice what's happening around you.
Hmm.
Share that.
Yeah, absolutely. Be that one person. Like I said, I've been lucky enough to have at least that one person. So if you can be that one person for somebody else, man, go for it.
Yeah, it can really change your life. It can give you your life back.
Yes. And theirs too.
Yeah. Yes. It's so true. Yeah. People ask me too, do you regret having those 12 years where you were just not involved in your life? And I'm like, well, yes, I wouldn't want to go through all the pain that I went through, but at the same time, like you, Tracy, I wouldn't feel the way I feel about myself now.
This is true.
We might not be podcasters. We might not be speaking about our feelings. We might not, it's true. Like I think it's important to evolve and bring people along with us, and hopefully we can all help each other.
Amen. That's what I'm here for.
Thank you so much. I'm going to, tell everybody where to find you. I know that you've got your Facebook group.
Yep.
And you also have the darkhorseschooling.com, and your
Correct.
Facebook group is called the same thing, correct?
It's called the Dark Horse Tribe.
Tribe. Wonderful. And so people can just go on, be a part of the community.
Okay. Come on in and jam with us. We got a bunch of other driven entrepreneurs in there. If you're thinking about restarting, and kickstarting your entrepreneurial game, come on in. Let's learn something.
Oh, sounds great. I love the attitude you have behind business as well. And you definitely have the experience to back it up. So yeah, guys, if you want to learn more about Tracy, you know where to find him. Thank you so much. I was so happy to have met you today and to speak a little bit about, all the things, right?
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. My pleasure for sure.
Was there anything that we didn't touch on today that you wanted to get out there?
No, I think we're good. And if you want to learn more about little old me, like you said, darkhorseschooling.com, all the socials are up there on the page. You can connect with me any way you like. Okay.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And I wish you a whole bunch of success, and keep thinking good things about yourself, because you're incredible.
I will.
You're incredible.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe or leave a review. See you next week on the Giving Starts With You podcast.